The host and Mouth of Sauron of this cheeky little episode. Joining me, as always, we have the Tom Bombadil of the show, Braden Arbitrary Water Redacted. Hello, Braden.
Trollily, Trollalillo, it's me, Arbitrary Watalillo.
Very, very good. Also joining us, as always, the absolutely Radagast the Brown of the show. It's Chris.
Ah, yeah.
Zombie Pie Redacted. Hello.
Let me tell you about my fucking mushrooms that I'm growing in my basement, but don't tell the cops about it. I'm Radagast, bitch. I don't fucking give a shit about these rings. I give a shit about this weed, if you get what I'm saying.
Quick check-in. How's everyone doing?
I apologize.
Why you apologize?
Because I picked this game we played, Jeff.
Oh, we could preamble this a little bit, though. We gotta,
Okay.
hear, not to spoil too much, but what good things have been going on in your life?
I got a
my
booster
fucking
shot.
job.
Yeah?
You played good games on stream.
Yeah,
I played a good game.
This new Pathfinder game looks cool, if not long, though.
Yeah.
Pathfinder's very long.
They just announced you can pay Nintendo $25 forever to have slightly more content in Animal Crossing.
9 Nintendo 64 games and a bunch of Genesis games you probably already own because you can buy them all on a Steam sale for like
Let's
$10.
not talk about PSN making it impossible to use a debit card now.
Yeah, that's I just about went on PlayAsia and bought more of that Japan money, and then I realized I don't know if there's really anything left on there I need to get. Like, I think I'm good. Not only that, but I've got PS1 by other means down well enough at this point. It's like I think I'm good. You know, if I want this over HDMI, I got another way to do that now.
Yeah, there's sunsetting this shit, though. I mean,
this is definitely
this is the end.
This is their soft step into doing it, but yeah, they'd probably by this.
I think Braden put it best in saying, man, it would not surprise me if, like, next quarter they're like, man, look at all these. Everyone said they wanted this system to be up, but look at the drop in sales. There's nobody buying stuff. We got to sunset it.
How am I supposed to buy Siren Blood Curse?
They
for
should
too much money.
Put Silent Bomber on there in English, damn it. Where's Tales of Destiny? Like, there's stuff that I would like them to put on there, but you know,
fuckers.
It would be nice if they revised a store that they literally haven't updated in like 5 to 6 years in terms of the classics section. So
for me, it's the endless amount of like PSP and PSP Vita games that have zero chance of ever getting a console release. Like ZHP Unlosing Ranger versus Dark Death Evil Man is one of the things that comes in to mind. There's all of those Luminous and Patapon games that were exclusive.
There was a recent
will never come back.
A Retronauts episode in the last couple months about this exact phenomena, like dying or dead digital storefronts. Those led to me figuring out how to bust open a Wii recently. It's pretty straightforward process. You can get all that WiiWare that you missed out buying. You have a jet rocket ready to go.
That Castlevania 2 or Castlevania Game Boy remake, right? Castlevania
Rebirth.
The Adventure.
Yeah. Crazy idea. How about they just sell us the shit over again? Like, well, I'd even allow them to do that. Just dismal of the state of affairs that is. Just like,
I mean, that's what Nintendo does.
Yeah.
It's shitty, but at least they do it. Like,
it's weird to think,
I know.
Like, I don't think it's a controversial statement to say the Switch feels kind of weird and long in the tooth right now. And, like, I wonder if whatever, the Switch Pro or whatever, they're going to do like a half step or whatever they stick in there as the next thing, if that is going to be a back compat thing or if they're just going to be like, fuck you, buy Animal Crossing again.
I think I've come around to that weird rotation of Switch Online games that they have available. I've used it a lot. I've used that program a lot more than I think I have used other versions of it. It's not nearly as much as Game Pass, but like
Sometimes you want to play Donkey Kong Country too.
Yeah, and like sometimes it's like better than like the stuff you get for free for Games for Gold, which that fucking program.
Yep.
ESN Plus. I don't know, man.
We at Deep Listens do not explicitly endorse piracy, but we ain't your dad. We ain't cops. We ain't gonna tell no one.
Yeah, I don't have access to those computers. Those being yours.
I'm not gonna tell you what to do, man. This copy of Tear Ring Saga burned itself onto a disc after I legally ripped it.
I would just say that, like, my one thing is if a video game is legally available easily, fucking support the developers. Like, come on, what the fuck are we doing?
I think the example for this for me right now is Red Candle stuff. I will fully cop to at some point acquiring a copy of Devotion. I believe was the work that got very unpopular with the sitting government in mainland China and led to a number of digital storefronts deplatforming the shop for preposterous reasons. That's available now. They have gone rogue and they're just running their own store. So I deleted that and bought it, and I would encourage everyone who made the decision I did to go ahead and do that, because they seem like a very talented studio with a bright future, and they probably won't be able to keep the lights on without money. I guess the most exciting thing that's gone on with me is I did some traveling, been to both Colorado and California in the last month and a half for backed up travel family reasons. One of my relatives is incarcerated. They finally let people in to see them. That was we have to go do this right now before they close this. And then another one gave birth. That's you can't really tell them, can you hold that for another week or a month or so? It just kind of happens. So I can confirm Gino and Chris are two real people. I've seen them both in the flesh. They're people.
Not an actual zombie. It's just a name.
Yeah, it's a gimmick. You see, it's like a wrestling gimmick. I managed to get part of a cotton swab stuck in my ear in California, and that required me going to an urgent care facility to get my ear irrigated to get it out, which was all sorts of fun for a number of reasons. The main one, though, this hospital's kind of busy right now. Y'all, let's all be safe. Let's all be nice to first responders and medical professional people, and maybe don't do what I just did and travel a bunch. But they're real. I've seen them, so I need to complete the set, and I guess now go to the East Coast and meet M, and then on the way back swing through the mountains and meet Braden, and then I'll have everyone. Oh, and I guess Pete. I guess does Pete count? Does Billy count?
He doesn't count anymore.
Billy, the ghost of Billy, is out there talking about Valdis story, Abyssal City.
I was just about to say.
To this day.
Some say Valdis story's still out there playing itself.
It's better than Undertale.
It's better than Metroid Dread. It's better than... we have fun here, don't we?
Speaking of things that are bad.
Yeah. Boy, howdy. This... if you couldn't tell from the fun Tolkien-esque
I thought you were going to say some hot takes about Metroid Dread.
No, I got nothing. I have not played. I did the dumb thing where I was like, oh yeah, I bought Samus Returns 5 years ago or whatever that came out, and then promptly didn't play it. I should probably eat my vegetables first, so I'm playing that on the bus right now. It's defensive. It's a weird game. It's a very, that Game Boy game is a little rough. There's no map. It's kind of a hard thing to go back to. This just feels kind of slow. You have that melee parry thing, but in order to do it, you have to be standing stock still. So it becomes a game of just kind of run, forward, stand, and wait for enemies to come at you, the game. Pacing feels very weird, but it's okay. It's okay.
Do you want to talk about what we've been streaming?
Oh, yes. Tell me about your stream. I sang the song.
Tell me about your stream.
Everyone likes to sing it.
I mean,
you go first, because I took a 2-week break. I get to talk about Atlantis: The Lost Tales, right?
Yes.
Holy shit, dude. I forgot how bad the post-Myst PC adventure game puzzle shit was. It was holy shit, dude. Braden, as someone who saw Atlantis and didn't have to play it, what were some of your big takeaways about this?
That game, the back half of that game turns weirdly racist in a way
Oh,
I was not
yeah,
expecting.
right.
Just like
we
real
found,
ooga booga looking
yes, we
tribesmen
found
and
a
Inuit people.
Inuit community, an
You
Inuit
lure
community.
a man to be eaten by a polar bear.
Yep, an Inuit
You-
community that fed me to polar bears as punishment for defiling their
There's a
god.
man who makes you race crabs to determine the rightfulness of your cause, and then offers his barely clothed daughter
Oh
as
no,
a
she's
bride.
topless, but
Oh,
her
yeah.
hair is covering the breastis. And then we have to save our female companion from a flying airship, and she's in the literal Princess Leia fucking slave outfit.
It's a game made by French people.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna post this because I want to
Yeah.
just. This is the map for one of the environments, Jeff.
That's right.
This is how.
Ooh.
So I want you to look at this.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so there are two paths on this map. I will actually, in the comments section of the YouTube archive, I will post a link to this image. So when you enter this location, you start at this ship. There are two paths you need to follow because the entire environment is covered with guards. There is no map that displays on your HUD. Basically, it's a mist game, right? There's no map, there's no compass, there's nothing. You need to move in the correct direction. Escape path 1 from 1 back to the ship, and then eventually from the ship to escape path to the witch. If you move even 1 iota in the wrong direction, it is an instant fail, and you will start at the beginning of the action sequence. On top of that, there was what was probably one of the worst things I think I've ever played my entire life. I had to hunt and kill a white boar. So I would start at the section of this map where it says witch. First, I need to move from the witch to 4, following the first half of the blue path that then connects to the red path. Otherwise, I will die because there are guards.
This plays really well on a podcast. I just want to be very clear.
Witch to a hill. I have to move to a hill and pick up a bow and an arrow. And the only hint that I have is I must kill the beast that has cursed this forest. That's literally all this lady says. So I have to go to a hill to pick up a bow with arrows. I then put the bow and arrows into my inventory. I then need to go to a river, drop the bow and arrow into the river to lift the curse on the bow and arrows, then put those back into my inventory, go to one of 3 possible spawn points for this white boar, pull out the bow and the arrow, prep the bow and arrow, which is a separate input, then wait stationary in one of the 3 possible spawn points for the boar, which are not marked in your map in any way, shape, or form, and wait anywhere between 1 to 7 minutes for it to spawn, during which you play a first-person sequence kind of like a Doom clone with no reticle in the center, in which you kill the boar, and if you fail, you got to try again from scratch. Then, after you kill the boar, you need to take your bag of holding, apply it to the sand in which the boar fell on, collect the blood sand, and then also harvest the tusk. But you don't use your knife, you use your wrench thing. And if you go to the witch, which this did happen to me, if you go to the witch and you don't have one of the items, she asks you to do it again, and she resets the puzzle to where you need to get everything all over again and then kill the boar again.
You know what this reminds me?
What?
Yes, I did witness this sequence, and people can watch that in your YouTube archives of your streams. But I think the ultimate thesis of your series on adventure games is that adventure games are bad, and there's a reason they died.
I'm now playing a new game called The Drowned God, and there was one really good.
That game seems real weird.
But it is really weird, and it's really problematic, but it is incredibly interesting. Bahamut is a robot dude, and Morgan Le Fay was a cyber lady, dragon lady. You have to see it to believe it. And it's also like Lost Tales is a very ambitious game that's just not able to pull all of its technical prowess into something that's even remotely fun to play. Hey, Braden, what have you been playing?
What have I been playing? I've been continuing with the Wheel of Dubious FPSs, a fine, high-quality product. Also, I've been playing some vaguely scary games for October.
Spooky.
I played Turok 3 and thought, this is better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, as like brainless, dumb fun, the Turok games are not the worst things in the universe.
Turok 3 is the one that is trying to be like Half-Life.
Yeah, that's kind of what, I think that might be the reason that the Night Dive people haven't given that the remaster treatment that they've given 1 and 2, and probably will never give Rage Wars, which is the weird multiplayer thing.
Given a PC release, so the source code.
Oh, that's all it is it? Huh. I guess I didn't realize Turok 2 got a PC release. News to me. You learn something every day, you know? We have been doing a thing, and it's Braden's fault. Braden, why? Why'd you do it?
Okay, so I feel like there's a fundamental tension in this podcast that I feel like we have fallen upon, where to some extent we want to cover games that are historically relevant or games that have an interesting historical context, but also we're a bunch of depraved weirdos and we want to cover games that no one has thought about in at least a decade and a half. And so with that second one in mind, I picked Lord of the Rings: The Third Age because I vaguely remember playing it as a child. My friend Austin had a copy of it and playing most of the game and remember liking it, and as an adult being like, wow, I bet this game's totally crazy. It's like a weird fan fiction Lord of the Rings with Final Fantasy X combat. Surely this is interesting topic. Not to mention, we are coming up on the 20th anniversary of Fellowship of the Ring releasing in theaters. If you want your requisite thing make you feel old thing for this week, that's it.
Time.
And I thought it would be a fun way to celebrate that. Celebrate what might be arguably the best trilogy of films in film history that even Peter Jackson couldn't repeat. Who knows? I fucked up.
Look, I'm actually gonna take away some of that. Look, it was bound to happen that one of us would pick a game based off of Zeitgeist or Scuttlebutt, and it turned out to be not what we were looking for. It was going to happen to either you, me, or Jeff. Like, we were going to pick a game that didn't really live up to your expectations, and we had to cut bait. I think that it will happen again. It will definitely happen again.
Probably. This one just stings like an awful lot. This one being, if it's not abundantly clear, Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, which was developed by EA Redwood Shores, the studio which became, the Dead Space people.
Visceral,
thank you. And
which
published...
then got shut down.
Yes, an entire to-do there. Published by EA on the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube on November 2nd, 2004. A couple days later in Europe. Right, so... What a fucking weird thing. So, in poking around, there is a Polygon piece that I would encourage maybe anyone with an interest in the sausage making of video games to go have a look at on Lord of the Rings video games. And that is maybe like the authoritative piece of journalism around this game, in my eye. It's semi-contradicted by stuff that's in Wikipedia, which says the production of this game actually started more or less in line with the Two Towers game, at least in the design stages. So,
can we just mention, during this period of time, it's not like there were not a lot of Lord of the Rings. There were a lot. Those movie games, surprisingly good.
EA had that license, and EA pumped out a lot of games, some of which are quite good. Those Two Towers and Return of the King games are pretty good pre-God of War hack and slashes.
Those Battle for Middle-earth RTS games are really good.
Battle for Middle-earth was the Command and Conquer people making Lord of the Rings RTS. Those games are great. They'll never get re-released.
Those games are really, really good. So there were good games with the Lord of the Rings IP during this period of time. And for the most part, EA was cranking these things out at a pretty good, quick speed.
Yeah, it's worth noting, I think this is worth talking just because it highlights the other interlocutor in this. There were also other Lord of the Rings games being made at the same time.
There was that weird Hobbit game from Sierra.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Fellowship of the Ring.
And Fellowship of the Ring, and there was the other Lord of the Rings RTS, War of the Ring, which is basically a Warcraft 3 ripoff.
Mm-hmm.
This is all possible because the Tolkien estate is a Shoggoth, basically. It is a shambling mass that at the time, I'm open to being corrected on this, was governed by, I think, his son, Christopher Tolkien. Who may or may not still be alive. I gather he was a very
he passed
particular...
away 2 years ago.
Okay. Well, God rest him. But I gather he was a really particular person about how his father's work was represented.
No, he was signing off if you paid him the money.
Huh. Because
he would be mad about it.
Sure.
Yes.
I remember it's in that Polygon piece. At some point he was complaining about that Hobbit game. There was like a tomato in a village, and he was upset about a tomato being in the village because that's a new world food.
Tomatoes are a new world crop. Yeah.
Yes, and he's like, hobbits would not know what that was, and the ass-pull solution is be like, it's a berry. And he's like, oh, that's fine. So you take the divorce there being those games, EA had a license agreement that was specific to Lord of the Rings stuff that was specifically in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings adaptations of the books. So everything in the films, up to and including the extended cut stuff, as far as I know, which is how we get a couple specific things in another game, are on the table. Anything that is outside of that is not on the table. And for games not in this EA realm, anything that is not in the films or the art style, like everything that the films did is like off the table. So like close your eyes. Everyone listening to this right now on the bus, whatever you're doing, close your eyes. Picture like an elven city, okay? Mm-hmm. Like I say, like city of elves. You probably draw some like real specific, general kind of bloom lighty woods with mist and a lot of like leather material everywhere. It's like, okay, well, they did that in Peter Jackson's films, so if it looks more or less 50% like that, it's right out. So come up with a new way to like make elves exist. This sort of mental gymnastic applied to that Hobbit game and the RTS that we're talking about, and also the Fellowship of the Ring game. So that logic broadly winds up applying to Third Age in a very specific, insane way, where this studio, EA Redwood, was tasked with make an RPG, which was also another note I've come up on here. One of the people, like the head designer of this game, was actually involved in like the Parasite Eve design. He was a former Square staff. Steve Gray, he'd worked on Final Fantasy VII, and he was a director on Parasite Eve. So, a person with RPG chops got his mitts on this as an executive producer. And what they were told was, make a story that is about the films, but not about the characters of the films. But make it about the films, because that's like what people want. An impossible task. Like, it has to be stuff from the movie, except the stuff from the movie that people like, which is the characters and the things that happen to them. And literally nothing else. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. Is that crazy?
That's very crazy, Jeff.
That's crazy talk.
How did they solve this problem? By taking extras from the background of the movies, modeling them as characters, and being like, this dude, this Faramir looking motherfucker, his name's Barathor. He's a member of the Gondorian Tower Watch, and he had a secret quest this entire time, and so it is about these, might I say, porn parody-esque cast of Fellowship.
Precisely.
Like, once again, Faramir, I'm going to say that again because I think it's very funny and I coined it.
I will say this. When we talk about like all-time fan bases that are super nerdy, that are okay with like that level of granularity, Lord of the Rings fans are up there in terms of like, I would love for you to tell me what's his heritage like. And I'm not slighting people who are super fans of that kind of thing. You do your thing. Do whatever you want. I'm just saying that them creating this level of granularity with the canon to make this game work, that to me is actually kind of creative and like oddly compelling when we start to kind of learn about these characters. The problem is these characters are nobodies. They're not given enough to like raise to the like. We don't find out that the reason why I want to serve in the Gondorian Knights is because it's like the most generic ass fantasy writing for this. It's like a cheap facsimile of, you know, these Lord of the Rings movies that were like high AAA drama and cinematic in every good positive ways. And it leads to one of the things where like you really realize they didn't know what to do when we talk about like when they start using the actual movie, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay. I just want to back up a little bit and talk about the concept of adaptation decay and how it like applies amazingly to this game, where it is just so many steps removed from the original work that, but they're trying. It's not full Shadow of Mordor enslaving armies of orcs. That's its own thing. That's Warner Brothers' tenure with the license, and they own both the book and the movie license, so they could do whatever the fuck they wanted. And they said, what if Shelob was a sexy lady? Whereas the EA team here were stuck with the movies, and when given the impossible task of telling a story with characters who were not from the movies, but still had to be kind of in the movies, about the movies, they successfully threaded the needle by not having one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I brought this upon you. I feel like I need to explain what this game is. So, Lord of the Rings: The Third Age is, one might say, borderline litigiously inspired by Final Fantasy X. Like, the combat system is very similar in that it is pure turn-based. It has a line of characters on the right-hand side of the screen telling you the order of actions, and depending on what actions you take, that can be moved. You have 3 active characters. You have abilities.
You can hot swap those characters, which is cool. I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. I'm surprised more games don't just rip off Final Fantasy X whole cloth.
Sure.
It's very, very good. You know, some would say it's the best Final Fantasy.
Yeah, some would say it's the best Final Fantasy ever made. Do you know what I want to... As someone whose opinions about Final Fantasy X have evolved, I actually listened to parts of the Final Fantasy X retrospective. And I remember, I actually now, Braden, I too need to eat some humble pie. And I know that I'm going to kind of skip a bit, but I need to eat some humble pie as well. Because in that series, I specifically say that I'm not a huge fan of the sphere grid, and I think Final Fantasy X would do better if it just had a traditional tech tree. And what Third Age made me realize, no, that's a terrible idea. An incremental leveling system does not work well with the conditional time-based battle system of Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
So I wish to formally retract all of the shit talking that I made of the sphere grid. Also, I've played a lot of Path of Exile, which is also a sphere grid. Sphere grids are okay when they're done well.
Sphere grids are... I have no problem with labyrinthine, Lovecraftian nightmare skill trees because they're... So the way characters advance in Lord of the Rings: The Third Age is one of the most perfunctory, rudimentary, like, we did not have enough time to implement anything better character advancement systems I have seen in an RPG in quite some time. So when your characters level up, they get a handful of stat points, which can be distributed amongst your character's stats.
Yeah, manually. Must be
manually.
There is no
by the player
button. You must go in and put in 2 pips to, help. And it's I I'm trying to think
and it
of
feels
how...
meaningless.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think what the scale is like. Like,
it is incremental.
It's incremental to the point to where one of the nice things about Final Fantasy X is when you put a sphere in the sphere grid and you unlock an ability or something new, or it tells you specifically how you've improved Waka, how you've improved Kimari, whatever. You've improved your character. You either gained a new ability or an ability has gotten stronger. And you feel this motivation to actually jump into the combat and actually see what the new thing is. In the Third Age, because it is plugging points into a character sheet, like quite literally that, it's like, oh, agility went up. I don't really know what that means. Or
there needs to be a number to the side that turns green and goes up when you put the points in.
Which, the fact that there is no green and red numbers that go up, like, that is just...
Sure.
That's UI design 101.
I mean, it feels...
I cannot fathom that part.
Personally, it feels like a scale thing. Like, I'm thinking, you know, God help me, but like Pathfinder or like 4th edition D&D, like, you know, you have ability scores that start out that are like, let's say 12 for argument's sake. Like, let's say they chose the hero stat sheet or whatever the fuck. And then like every 2 levels, or it's not super frequently, it's like several sessions, you can add a point to that and it actually feels like it matters. Like, oh, this went to an even number. I can now, like, you know, I've grokked all these new things out of this. When you are doing it so often that you've, like, 6 hours into the game, you've gone from, like, all my scores are in the, like, 20s to all of them are in, like, the 40s. Like, yeah, that's, you know, the numbers did get bigger, but it's not like the enemies aren't scaling along with you to a certain point. So, yeah, it just feels like nothing. Like, it feels like nothing meaningful happens. And then you have the goddamn ability trees.
The way
the
abilities level up is
also bad.
It's also bad. So sphere grid, once again, sphere grid not terrible, right? You put the sphere into Fire Raga and you get Fire Raga. Fire Raga.
Ferga.
Yeah.
Ferga.
But by getting through combat by, you know, like what you deem to be the most efficient way of doing that, you just naturally get yourself to better things.
In Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, your characters each have 2 unique abilities trees, basically. So Barithor, who is once again fake human man, who is definitely not Sean Bean. He has leadership buffs, which are like party buffs, and he has sword skills. And so every time you use...
He's a Titus.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Every time you use sword skills, you get 1 point towards getting the next sword skill, regardless of the foe you are defeating, regardless of the skill you are using, regardless
crits,
of... crits. So that leads to some real, like, mid-level Elder Scrolls shit where you
led to some
heavily incentivized to just grind that shit out and spam cheap costing abilities as much as possible.
It's a very Lamarckist or Lamarckism style of leveling. Use or disuse. And unlike, say, our favorite Lamarckist leveling system, Final Fantasy II, it's very dry with no opportunities to exploit or take advantage of things.
Yeah, or even
never
be that
felt
expressive, you know?
Yeah, no, it was not expressive. Like, at least in Final Fantasy II, which I think is a game that's a piece of shit. But at least there was a sense of, oh, wow, I've really fucked this character up. Like, now they've really... I turned my...
take characters in a direction.
I turned this cleric character into a healer, and now he can't hit for shit. I can completely reverse this, but it's going to take me an hour. With this, it's just kind of like the point went up, and I think they hit harder, and they did more damage, but then also the enemies always seemed to like level up in tandem with my characters, so I didn't really get that sense of, my characters have turned this corner, and they're a lot better in combat, or I've got this new trinket that I can use. No, I didn't.
This is made even worse when you get some of the bonus skills. So you get elf stones, which are basically just rings or like passive ability buffs. And one of them is crafting, which lets you craft items. But you know how...
Did any of you craft anything in this game in the time you spent with
I thought about it.
I never figured out how to do it.
I did it for a little bit, and then I saw how much you would have to craft lembas bread.
See, I looked up a guide about the crafting, and it's decent. Like, even through my normal amount of grinding, I never had enough materials to really piece together the equipment or the weapons that were worth a shit. It was like I had to make, like you just said, Braden, I would have had to have spent like 3 minutes crafting the first step.
So much
the first step has like 5 parts to it. And then the second step, I synthesize 5 parts into 3.
The fat hobbit ate all the lembas bread.
And then I have to synthesize those 3. Like, there were way too many steps to like make stuff.
Yeah.
For me to ever feel like it was worth it. And then also the loot drops in this game were not enough materials to where I ever felt like I had enough wiggle room to really experiment.
Yeah, like it seemed
you
like
get enough healing items on your own.
Yeah, like the economy of this game, such that it is, seems like an economy that is based on you need to grind like an awful lot to accumulate stuff to craft into better stuff, which just sort of drags you back into the combat, which I guess we haven't addressed the combat like directly, but the other thing about the skill trees that really got me is it's like, okay, well, but maybe there's at least, interesting forks and stuff. Like, they force you down some paths, so you gotta be like, okay, well, I'm going to specialize this direction. Not really. I think all 2, 3, if not all 4 of your starting characters, they're like, at least one of their skill trees, each one of them, the first like 3 or 4 pips on it were completely linear, which is like, the same thing you can say about the sphere grid, I guess, but they then just have 2 spokes, and you progress in a linear fashion down one of those 2 sides, it looked like the entire way. Like, there's no, like, well, if I choose the direction this way, and, like, the third ability down this tree is good, but it would be nice to have this one on this other side. Like, there's not a lot of, like, prioritizing things necessary. I don't know. That's where the expressive part came in for me. Like, I want to make my Faramir feel a certain way. I feel like everyone's Faramir is going to feel a certain way, which is the second ability you got only really works on orcs, so I'm just going to use the first one over and over and over again until he runs out of AP.
It's never entirely clear about like action speed, where certain actions will put you lower down on the initiative order, but it never really presents that to the player, and as a result, there's this weird action economy thing of, I am never going to use this skill tree.
Sure.
In the cases of especially the additional ones where you get like dark magic, light magic, crafting, all that stuff. And it's like, oh cool, I got dispel. I have to use this 15 times. Or I could use my sword skills 15 times and actually get good abilities.
Yeah, and the fights will get done faster. I think the thing that really, really, really started to drag too is like on top for me personally. It's also kind of slow. Like,
oh no, I agree.
Like, when you get into I feel almost mean comparing this to Final Fantasy X, but they really did do it to themselves. That game has like certainly issues with it, but combat, I'd say, is not really one of them. The fights kind of move, and you have like everyone's got a purpose. Everyone's got like a specific thing that they're good at. Like it's stuff that like people that are not necessarily video game inclined could sort of be like, oh, it's a flying enemy. Get Waka in, he throws the ball, the flying enemy dies. I feel good doing that. Your brain likes it. This is just like, okay, there's 3 goblins, right? And like there is some specialization. Like the dwarf you find, he is good at killing goblins for some weird.
He's good at killing goblins.
Tolkien
he's good at
racist reason, but each one of these moves takes a good 5 or 10 seconds to do, as opposed to Final Fantasy X, which is just like booyah, blat, done. It drags, and God help you, as soon as you start getting into these special attacks, ooh, slow.
See, and that's the weirdest thing. It's like it borrowed the basic skeleton of Final Fantasy X, and then it put all the organs in the wrong spot. Because when I think of Final Fantasy X, I think of snappy, quick combat where I can swap in and I can swap out. But then the characters don't level quick enough to where I feel like there's a sense of progression. And then I'm in combat and I don't have enough special abilities that allow me to really speed through. Like, that was the thing we talked about, the ability list. Like, in the time we played, I really don't feel like I got a good spread of really cool abilities that gave me a good understanding of what, okay, these are their strengths. I understand that there was the archer, there was the dwarf, there was the human, but like, there really weren't enough abilities and spells and stuff that took advantage of the whole, like, we're stealing the combat conditional system of Final Fantasy X. Like, it's like, you summoned a bunch of arrows that killed this dude, but whatever.
Like, to the game's credit, like, it does use debuffs and buffs, and those are like useful because, you know, Arbitrary Water's rule of status effects is that if your RPG has good status effects and good debuffs, I will pay it more attention. That's why people like Shin Megami Tensei. That's why I think Wizardry 8 is fucking real good. I think we're all kind of on the same page with this, is that the combat is a little, it's dull. It is an approximation of Final Fantasy X that is maybe like, it's admirable in its shamelessness, but it is in execution, it is uneven when you are fighting the same handful of orc models that they took from the other PS2 games, and listening to Howard Shore's wonderful musical score blaring over these incredibly slow battles.
I think you talked about it when you streamed it. Like, this and the Star Wars video games use the same loop of the cinematic scores, and there's nothing more disorienting than I'm in a swamp just fucking about killing random goons, and here's this constantly crescendoing cinematic score for this epic battle scene blaring in the background.
Dun, 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 dun.
It's like, I'm literally killing mooks. I'm killing mooks in a swamp. There's nothing epic about this.
And it does not work with the pace of the combat either.
Yeah.
Because the combat is slow.
I don't know how you could have started this game much worse. Because this game starts introducing you to these characters in a I will call a somewhat slapdash manner. And it's like sort of 3 hours of going through brown gray woods with like map design. First of all, there's no goddamn functional map in this game. There's a mini map that's of marginal use that I don't really love. You get introduced to the let's call it quest structure in this game, which feels very, very stapled on, and we'll talk more about it later. And then they throw you into Moria. So for those of you who have read these books or seen the film The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, which you should probably just go watch if you hadn't, because it's good. Moria, it's a place where there's like mystery and excitement and a big punch up at the end and drama. And it also takes approximately like 30 to 45 minutes. You have this entire range of emotions, and there's a big crescendo, and then a whole lot of, catharsis, and then people leave and they're changed by what happens. It's like an incredible sequence in an incredible film in an incredible trilogy. And what this game does to the entire Moria sequence is grinds it into what I can only describe as like a gruel, like a mush, like a gray mush, where for 5 or 6 hours, all you are doing is walking through gray and listening to Howard Shore's music gently in the background, making Lord of the Rings noises.
Getting your stream archives demonetized because it's playing Howard Shore's soundtrack.
On top of that, the combat here is early enough into the game where you really don't have all the cool special time status effect abilities, so you're literally just whacking fools with weapons for a good chunk of this. And it's just a goddamn slog. It's a dull-looking level. The encounters happen at enough of a frequency to where it feels like it's basically like an Final Fantasy game from like the 8 to 16-bit era, like some of those Kusoge games that we were playing, even the fan translation episodes. Like I got flashbacks to fucking Arabian Nights at some points where it's like I took 3 steps and cool, fighting another group of orcs. One of them's in the background shooting arrows at me, and I have to use the ranger to attack them. Cool.
I have played like old school style hardcore dungeon crawlers with less grueling dungeons, like just less of a slog.
And I was kind of wondering to myself, do you think this game would have benefited from real world instancing of enemy encounters, kind of like, say, Chrono Trigger, rather than the random encounter system?
It's funny because they kind of do that at times around the chests. Fun sidetrack. So my original plan was to play this. This is one of a handful of original Xbox games that is backwards compatible on the 360. Not the Xbox One, but on the extremely strange list of games that you can play on a 360. If you go to the Wikipedia page that has that full list, it's a hoot and a holler what they got on there. Some of it's like licensed sports games. Some of it is very B-level. And, you got Halo and Halo 2, like stuff you would expect. And then this, which is very, very odd. But I was like, cool, I can plug this into over HDMI to a projector, play it in the living room, be like, hey, honey, look, it's Final Fantasy X, but, like, it's got Gandalf. It doesn't work. It does this thing. There's, like, a glow on these chests. I played this on an original Xbox and tried to figure out what's going on here. It's what I will venture to say is an alpha effect. So when you approach a chest, there's, like, a dim sort of glow on them. And what that would do is instead of just glowing the chest, it would just flash the entire screen from normal to full white and then fade out and cycle through that every like 2 or 3 seconds. It might have been something I could live with and maybe didn't affect every single level, but I was like, this doesn't seem to work and it's not worth me trying to figure out. Glad I stopped. So, just in case you want to try that was my experience.
I originally was going to try and do the GameCube version of this game, and then I remembered that this is one of the few rare GameCube games because GameCube used a baby disc. This is one of the few GameCube games that is on multiple discs. And the reason for that is the cinematics.
Yes.
Gentlemen, this is probably one of the weirder aspects of the game, and we will talk more about the story. This game just uses scenes from the movie to set you into the mood and the set pieces of the game, just using whole cloth, copy-pasted scenes from the movie.
So they had the rights.
I think this might actually be the worst thing this game does.
Exactly.
The main thing that this does is undercuts like everything narratively that could even possibly happen in this game, which like from what we saw was also not a whole lot. But like imagine like this is like Dungeon Master 101 sort of shit. Like make your characters the cool people. Like the people who are playing your game need to feel cool. Like they need to feel the ones that have agency and like what they're doing matters, and like when you're introducing other characters, they should be like a little shittier, a little worse, kind of lame. Because then like your characters feel like, oh, I'm actually like impacting the world, and like I do feel like it's good for your brain. It's good for their brains. Give it a shot. Try it if you're going to be a DM. Try to focus your story on the character. What this game does is constantly interrupt you. Like literally every 5 or 10 minutes, they get Sir Ian McKellen to come in and record a lot of extra audio. A pop-up will say like, hey, you unlocked a movie scene. Want to check it out? And you're like, okay, hit A. And a clip from Lord of the Rings will play and it'll just be like, yes, the Fellowship was just over here. It looks like you've came to the spot where we were. Yeah, we're a bunch of cool guys. Yeah, we hope the fire's still going for you, buddy. Have fun. Like, oh, right, there's the cooler people are off doing cooler shit, and I'm just like mopping up after them, I guess. Like, it's fucking lame. It's a bummer. It's like, they already used the guts of the games, and now they're using the guts of the movies, I guess. A hell of a decision. And there's so many of them. There's like
so
109 of them or something.
Listen, they got him in that booth for like a couple days, and they said, hey, man, read this shit. And listen, Sir Ian McKellen is a professional. He will disinterestedly read whatever copy you give him. Just look at that clip of him reading the Unlimited Blade Works thing for you anime perverts out there. But where this shit gets even better, and by better I mean like 18 sneer quotes around better, is that those clips also have Sir Ian McKellen as his character Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings, telling you what the characters in the video game are feeling and thinking and what their backstories are. Is any of that expressed in the game itself? No.
And it's a lost opportunity. And like I said earlier, I'm not against the idea of being a rando in the world of Lord of the Rings. Wouldn't it have been cool if we were like soldiers that are en route to join our iconic figures in like this legendary battle. Let's say we're all marching to Helm's Deep to defend Helm's Deep from the giant siege by the orcs. And we're the people in the trenches trying to prevent the orcs from blowing it up, or, we're just participants in a bigger thing. That's fine. That's totally fine. But like Jeff said, it constantly shines a spotlight on your characters being chicken shit. Not chicken salad, chicken shit. Just these little guys that are 2 or 3 steps behind and then just doing these like side quests.
There's probably room for a Dungeons and Dragons campaign based around the conceit of following in the footsteps of a much more powerful group of characters, but that would have to be done like comedically or dramatically.
Yeah, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern style.
Yes, but I think we need to emphasize the cutscenes in this game are rarely over 90 seconds long. Like every single cutscene in this game feels like it is missing half of its lines of dialogue.
Yeah, which is why on the GameCube version, like if those are what likely pushed them over the top to where they needed 2 discs, why didn't you just cut them out? They add almost nothing to the game experience. In fact, they're a net negative. Like, I wouldn't blame you if you just took them out so that you could fit it on a single GameCube disc.
And then the added insult to injury of having Gandalf tell you the story, because it's cheaper to have Sir Ian McKellen in a booth for a week than it is to have animators make cutscenes with the characters in your video game.
Yeah, so we do need to kind of talk more about like the actual story or what we
do we?
What we experience.
Okay.
What are our fun characters that we got in the short part of the adventure?
We got Barithor. He also known as Faramir. He's a dude. He's from Gondor. He was looking for Boromir and then there's Elf Lady. What's her name? Idriel. She is
Gimli stan.
There's fake Gimli, who is Hathor, I think is his name.
I think that's right.
There is the Dunedain Ranger, who is just shabbier Aragorn, whose name I forgot.
I played this game this week, and I'm not trying to be cute. The entire time I was playing it, and particularly now, struggled to remember these characters' names. Like genuine
Eldegost is the name of the ranger.
Eldegost.
Just any sort of RPG character maker name. And then we did not get far enough to get Dual Axe Lady or Spearman, but they're also in the game.
Cool.
Sometimes Gandalf is in your party.
What's the premise of this? Like, why does fake Barithor? Why are we always one step behind? What is the quest? Jeff, go, or Braden, someone.
Okay, so Barithor's initial quest is to find Boromir. And so you spend, as far as we played, which is the entirety of Fellowship, more or less, you are following the Fellowship like 18 steps behind. There's that one cute moment where when you're in Moria, you're at the bottom of the well that Pippin accidentally knocks the skeleton down into. And that's like the one funny, like serendipitous, it's like the thing happening in the movie. The exciting thing that is happening in the movie is currently happening while we are trudging through this lava dungeon.
And it sucks. Like,
and
why can't
then
I do the cool shit upstairs.
And then at some point you get to Rohan, and that's where I stopped, is where I got to Rohan, and then I assume at some point my characters will have to go to Helm's Deep for reasons Gandalf will tell us. But I feel like if this game had a decent enough story, or like was trying more with storytelling, I would be more tolerant of the combat. But because the combat is the only thing this game is doing, its weaknesses are far more readily apparent, and it's a grind, it's a slog. I hate it.
Moria is just maybe one of the worst opening levels in a role playing game I've seen, and I am not a huge fan of the starting level in Baldur's Gate 2, but goddamn,
it just dies a death in this dungeon in a way that
and it goes so long. It's not like the game is trying to teach you. Yeah. It's not like the game is teaching us fundamental concepts.
Where the Fellowship is broken. Instead, Moria is a 2-part dungeon.
Yeah, and it's weird because you open... I talk about this dumb quest menu thing, but there's a quest menu where there's explicit things that are going to happen in this game that I feel like are not even optional things most of the time. I feel like a couple of them you might be able to get around, but they're generally just like, you met this story beat, here's a bunch of free experience for you in a big pile, which incidentally sometimes also levels you up. So then you have to go back into menus that you just got out of to put 2 more points into a person's agility. So their agility score is now 54 instead of 52, which is important because numbers are big, I guess. It's awful. But that explicitly lists like 8 or 9 places, and I saw there's 2 Morias, and I was like, oh, what the how are there 2 of these? What are we doing?
For a video game that Jeff and I were hyping each other up about over the premise of, yo man, the final boss is the Eye of Sauron. That's shit's crazy. It's just,
and I watched that cutscene.
Clinically dull.
It's a very dull fight based off of what I saw in the Let's Play that I saw. And here's the deal. That's crazy. Everything else in the story is just the most... It's fan fiction. It's just low rent fan fiction. Like they don't even make...
has effort put into it.
Yeah, fan fiction has at least a little bit of a kiss and some fucking from time to time, and we don't even get dicks out or anything.
Yeah, it's nothing. Like the most they go through Moria. The dwarf doesn't care for the elf. The elf is dismissive of the dwarf. And yet, the elves made part of Moria. And yet, the dwarves know better how to operate parts of it. And they have a healthy banter back and forth. While the ranger is like, let us stay focused. I have vague mercenary energy. And Boromir is like, he stands around. I don't think he really says a lot at any point. It's... Like, they have the chemistry of, like, a paper plate set. Mm-hmm. There's nothing between these characters.
Yeah, and if you're gonna have these, like, side dish characters, at least make them cool or, like, interesting.
Yeah, give them, like, funny... Well, they do give them funny accents, but they're kind of shit. Like, so never mind. Like, I feel like the dwarf can't decide if he is Scottish or Russian or like vaguely Scandinavian, so he just kind of will just decide on a certain read which one he's doing. Man.
But yeah, like Barithor is like the most boring vanilla milkshake ass, and that's an insult to vanilla milkshakes. Just the most boring dude, like to both play and then also to like listen to talk. It's like, my guess is that we need to go north, but there will be orcs. End scene.
Yeah, and then you go north, and then if you look in your quest log, it'll give you something exciting, like there are 3 bands of... Like, the forest was like, as soon as I saw this happen and started getting a feel for this game in like the first hour or 2, I was like, oh no. It was like, there are 3 bands of wild men in the forest.
And yeah.
You make sure you hunt them down. And then you look on this awful, shitty mini-map and zoom it out, and you look off, there's like one little spur off the critical path, and that spur has like 3 little bulb-shaped nodes off of it, and each one of them's got a chest. And I was like, I'm going to walk into each one of those, and it's going to grok a random encounter for me with 3 groups of wild men, and I'm going to beat them. That's exactly what it did. And that structure is just repeated ad infinitum. Of just like literally the same sort of broad map structure. Just like go to a place, there's like a spur off the main path, and there's 2 or 3 little bops that are sticking out, and you'll fight a really specific mob in each one of them, and then you'll get some bonus experience for doing that. And, also get something exciting like a second age hubcap key of Ventuzler, or like a third age like Snozgosler sort of like the Puss Whip Bang Gang. Like, the equipment's dull. The structure is excruciatingly... This game does, like, the worst possible thing. I don't want to, like, actually have a thesis on this yet, but if I do have a thesis, it's this. If video games should avoid being one thing, it's dull. And the problem with this game is it's ultimately very, very dull. Like, it's not even that... Like, all these things we've described are, like, bad mechanically, but what it coalesces to is not something that is, like, you know, it's not like you turn on Crazy Bus for the first time and you experience, like, actual, incredible something.
It's not a disaster piece.
No, it's just dull.
The worst thing about this game is that I can see a version of this game that would be good and would be memorable, and I just don't think the developers had the time or the, you know, licensing abilities, licensing constraints to be able to make it.
I think that is maybe a good time to segue into the ultimate crime here of like the actual crime scene part of this, to wrap all the way back around to that Polygon bit I mentioned at the beginning of this section. Basically, what is put out in that article is that this game, as I mentioned, at least the Wikipedia article on it attests that it was, like, at least in a design phase as early as, like, late 2002. But what it actually describes is there was about an 8-month sprint in 2004 where this game actually got done. 8 months. Okay? Like, we have the ability to do a certain amount of things in 8 months. You know? Like, drive from, you know, Barrow, Alaska to the Panama Canal. You know? Like, there's like, things you can do. When you start talking about, like, I'm going to make a AAA game on 3 consoles with all these bullshit constraints in, like, a team setting, and it has to meet a certain, like, min spec of quality before they'll even, like, tolerate putting this out the door. I think that is where all of these problems came from. And, like, once you have that piece, almost everything starts making sense. Of course, they put in, like, literally hours of film footage because it probably bulked up the game's runtime by, like, 3 to 5 hours when you add it all together. A couple hours of this game are literally just movies you like.
The how long to beat on this game is not ridiculous, which is why we picked it. We literally did not finish this game because it's bad.
Yes.
It's stunningly mediocre. I think is the problem.
I think
if a game is going to be bad, it needs to be bad in the right way.
This
game is neither bad nor great.
I think this game is the most old school video game press 7 out of 10 ever made.
This 8-month sprint happened in the year of our Lord 2004, which is also the year a certain other publication came out, the EA Spouse Letter. Now, for people under a certain age who weren't fairly online in, like, Hotspot, GameSpot days, old Hotspot, like Rich Gallup Hotspot, that may not mean anything, but at the time, Electronic Arts was, let's say, fond of treating several of its studios and employees in much a similar manner, let's say, and it caused a response from the universe, which was a open letter written by an anonymous spouse of an EA employee, which was published. The date on this is May 2019, so I'm assuming this was like a 15th anniversary, more or less, but it was at some point in 2004. Basically, a spouse wrote in, this is a pretty easy thing to cite, but broad grievances of, like, I literally haven't seen my husband in, like, a gajillion years. You are basically killing people. You have all the money in the universe. Do you need to flog these people to death? Like, calls out the CEO of EA, Larry Probst, directly in the last paragraph. This letter was sort of a cause de célèbre at the time, though the anonymous person who wrote it, as far as I know, is not some sort of celeb now. I think it got a lot of people at least starting to think about how games are produced. and like the sort of vicious circumstances in which they are made, and capitalism, like these sorts of thoughts, like video games don't just like rattle out of a tree somewhere. And that you carry that forward in life. I've certainly, like, even if I forgot the specifics of this letter, I think those stories are kind of worth knowing. Like,
absolutely,
that the people who made Final Fantasy VI, that was not a fun experience for them in some sense. There was a lot of, I sleep under my desk 7 days a week and subsist on cigarettes, and sometimes they don't turn the heat on in this building, and it's winter, and Japan is reasonably cold in the winter, depending where you are. Like, it was not like a, wow, what an amazing, like, artistic endeavor journeying the mines. It was like, no, people were exploited and treated very poorly when they made this. And it's kind of remarkable that A, games get made at all, and B, they can be made transcendently good pieces of art under such circumstances. Because there's like a world where Final Fantasy X or 6, or pick any fucking game that you like that took a while to make, is something that like a CEO or an executive is just like, you've got 6 months, we cannot miss this ship date because we have this licensing deal. Also, you can't have the character, like, all this bullshit basically gets shoveled on you.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel personally kind of bad throwing this game into the shit pile with all that much force, because I have like an enormous amount of sympathy for the circumstances under which it was made. And like, I can, you see like every decision like starts to add up. It's like, oh yeah, well that was probably the skill tree they had the time to make. And yeah, of course they made like 2 new models for this game. They had 8 months. Like, of course, it's like shamelessly cribbing from shit. Of course, it's padded out with DVD footage.
Yeah, and of course, like, every level that is in the game goes way too long because these are the levels they were able to put in. It's like spooky forest levels, pretty easy to make.
This is the level geometry they literally took from the Two Towers game, which is why
and that's the other
a large
thing is, like,
portion is spent in Moria.
Yeah, they make you backtrack in that Moria level like twice, too. Like, you go back and forth a couple times in there. Like, you really get to know that throne room area very well.
Yeah, it's a terrible circumstance, and I think it's good that you bring it up, Jeff. But then also, there's another game that bears the same name.
There is, and we've got to talk about this other thing. So
we have to talk about this. Another game that was definitely made in like 6 months.
Yeah.
From what I've heard from like testimonies, like, during this era, like, GBA portable gaming divisions were like literally like teams of like 10 to 15 at most. Like, the teams were small.
Yes. So when we were initially talking about this episode, something I was interested in was trying to play the Game Boy Advance iteration of the Third Age out of curiosity, because here's this game I'd been hearing about for years as like, it's kind of like Final Fantasy X. How funny. That's funny and neat. And I was like, huh, so you're telling me there's like an outside chance that there is a Final Fantasy X-esque game on the Game Boy?
Oh boy. So the designer was also the producer. The designer, the 2 designers here were the associate producer and the executive, and the main producer. There's 1, 2, 3 programmers, an art lead, and 1, 2, 3, 4 people credited with art. A background artist and musician. So yeah, this is kind of like old school.
Yeah.
Most of the people who are thanked in these credits are the necessary executives that get credits because, executives, and then the QA team is bigger than the actual dev team.
Kryptonite Games was responsible for the Game Boy Advance version of this. Kryptonite looks like they were more or less under EA at the time. They made 12 games for the GBA. I will scroll down. This will not take long. 007, Everything or Nothing, a bad first-person shooter on the GBA. Crushed Baseball, never heard of it. Daredevil, good licensed slop, probably. Digimon Racing, that's under Bandai. They made the Harry Potter quasi-RPGs for the GBA.
Oh, God.
Lego Star Wars, Lemony Snicket. They made the Two Towers and Return of the Kings games, which are weird isometric brawlers.
They're kind of Diablo. They have random loot.
And then the Herbs, Sims in the City. Or less herbs, less Sims in the city. Or D-herbs, Sims in the city. Or Los herbs, Sims en la ciudad.
The GBA Sims games are actually also really good. That's the game I liked. It's basically a life sim RPG. Like I might pick that 5 years down the road.
Oh man, let's piss everyone off. My pick would be Zelda for an RPG, and then you do The Sims, and then we get a sports game in there, and then everyone's mad. We win.
Engagement.
Spoilers.
You make people angry, you get engagement.
Kryptonite made this thing. I cede the floor because this is not at all like Final Fantasy X. It's a lot more like someone else's wheelhouse.
Oh, hi.
Hey. Hi, guys. Oh,
Hi, what's
strategy.
up?
Hey, Braden, strategy games, right?
I
You love them.
As a noted fan of strategy games, especially several of those on the Game Boy Advance, they sure did try to make some sort of weird approximation of Advance Wars and Fire Emblem.
It's a weird mix
with Lord of the Rings.
It's a weird mix of Advance Wars because it has like certain concepts in terms of like recruitment, but the commander is displayed actually on the battlefield rather than the commander is passively like a third person viewer.
There is a hero. There is a mode called Sauron mode. Yeah. Where your named characters can permanently die.
Which is a cool idea. They clearly took the permadeath concept from Fire Emblem. And I mean, it kind of works within that context.
In a way, this is actually, it's slightly ahead of Fire Emblem because they beat them to the punch on really bad digitized sprites.
Oh my
By a couple of years.
Once again, watch the Thor High Heels video on weird GBA games where he kind of goes into how many GBA games used weird-ass 3D models digitized as sprites. And once you see that and remember the GBA games you owned that weren't, Super Mario Brothers.
Super Dodgeball. Yeah.
The Legend of Zelda.
That Splinter Cell game that was not terrible. It was like a platformer. Splinter Cell.
It is the most grungy ass looking 3D models that have been squeezed down into GBA sized sprites with excellent renditions of aforementioned Howard Shore score using the GBA's well beloved. What's the frequency of the GBA sound chip? Is it 16 kilobits per second?
It's an 8-bit DAC.
Okay, yeah.
It's
okay.
Yeah, there's
dual 8-bit DAC.
There's a very specific sound to the Game Boy Advance. If anyone,
if you mean that sound, it sucks ass.
It's the sound of tinny compression.
Yeah, the fucking Pokemon trumpet sound is when I think of GBA music, that is the first thing that comes to mind. It's just
I think of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire
that sound like shit.
There's some standouts. I think all the music in Rhythm Heaven is okay. I think
Advance
WarioWare
Wars,
4 is good.
They use that well.
It's different, but I would say I didn't even really mind the Final Fantasy V music that much. It's certainly different and not as good as the SNES stuff. The Final Fantasy VI soundtrack specifically,
version of Battle of the Bridge. So good on you.
Yeah, it's they really tried. They tried. Yeah. There was a lot of ambitious shit on this console that should not have been.
Pick good or evil side.
Yeah, and the fact that the evil side has an actual campaign is super interesting. I mean, we haven't had that since Battle for Middle-earth 2.
We have to pause.
Yeah, Battle for Middle-earth and Battle for Middle-earth.
We forgot to mention the most important feature.
Shit, we forgot to mention Evil Mode.
Evil Mode.
Oh, we forgot to talk about Evil Mode.
Yes,
shit.
This will take so long to discuss.
This is the best dumb thing. If the entire game were Evil Mode, I actually think that this game would have worked better. It's like, you're an orc, fuck them up.
Hey, remember these encounters from the game that you just played? What if you played them from the orc's perspective and they were really easy and just kind of dull?
Yeah. The weird thing is that the game recommends that you do those because they give you the best loot in the game and you get more experience points. And they're all super easy because, yeah, surprise, surprise, if you're the boss and you actually pick the most powerful attacks, you can just waste people.
It's such a strange addition, though.
Like,
It's got very.
It's so weird. Like you can see why they chose to implement it because it was probably not a ton of work. In the same way that, fun fact, the game has co-op.
Oh yeah, there's a co-op.
The game has plug in and play co-op where a second controller can pick another one of the characters in your very slow, lengthy battle.
Final
scenes.
Fantasy VI style. Yeah, like, yeah, it's dumb. So you get evil mode there. This has Sauron mode, which is very, very different. This also has a character. So we rewatched these movies recently with friends who had never seen them, and we got to the end of the Return of the King, and Ashley was just like, "Where the fuck is the Mouth of Sauron? Where is he?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I've never seen the extended versions of these movies, which, shame on me, I guess.
Theatrical versions are better in some way, like as film.
Peter Jackson has pretty well said, like, I edited these for a reason. Like
hyper indulgent spectacles, obviously you have to go with the extended ones.
Sure. But that's where he is. The Mouth of Sauron is a character that only exists in the 5-hour version of the Return of the King. Anyway, he's a playable character in this. And I fist pumped. I was like, Ashley, look, they got him. I found him. So what are you talking about? Like, look, he's he could be Aragorn or the Mouth of Sauron. It's ridiculous.
And the evil side, all of their hero units are just random orcs with speaking roles from the movies and fucking worm tongue. So it's just all of these people in orc makeup and then Brad Dourif.
It's just the guy saying, "I want some meat," and then the guy saying, "Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys." And let's take a breather. Like
the fact of the matter is because those characters for the evil side are just, I felt like I could paint the numbers and create my own. I actually found I thought I had a more fun time with the GBA version of the game when I was playing evil, because the characters, the units were a little bit different. There's a different kind of, there's a pseudo strategy with each side. The good guys are more sword and board traditional, whereas the orc side of things is kind of more Zerg-like.
Yeah, you got more cheap disposable units, whereas the good guys have stronger, less elite units.
And the different commanders each have their own buffs and abilities, so it's kind of like Advanced Wars.
It's not a good strategy game because we're missing the most integral part, which is the way the game divvies the number of actions you are capable of taking on any given turn is random, and it is based on the what's the triple? What's the 3 version of quadrant?
Trident. There's 3 lanes.
Yeah.
This game has one of the most insane ways of conceiving of movement in a game I think I've ever seen, and ever. And we played Draken. You get a random dice roll based on an ability score of the hero unit you put in each lane, which determines how many moves you have per lane.
How many orcs you can move per turn, per lane. And
you can move them across lanes. It's not like they're stuck per se, but they do draw these lanes out for you in the One Ring font, kind of glowing. It's weird.
It's strange.
It's
weird.
Not fun because it slows every single battle that you have in this game to a goddamn crawl.
Absolutely. Sometimes you can move 2 characters out of your 12.
Sometimes, and there's nothing more frustrating when you're like, oh, I'm going to play Gorbag. Everybody's favorite, Lord of the Rings character. I'm going to play Gorbag and have him paired up with Sharku.
You buy this game
and then
on the shelf and it has Gandalf on the cover, and it's play as Wombaz the Magnificent. What are we doing?
Lurtz and Gothmog. And so it's here's my dude. Oh, I'm going up against Aragon? Aragon's got 5 movement. I've got 2. Fuck.
I picked Brad Dourif.
I don't know why.
Wormtongue always gets 2 to 3 action points per lane. He's useless in combat, but it seems like the way you play that game is to keep your hero units out of combat as much as possible.
Yeah.
In case the enemy gets enough turns to swarm them and kill them.
Yeah, it's very, very, very go waste all of these mooks. And it looks they give you some points at the end for like your performance, but I was not feeling
really
particularly attached
into anything.
Yeah, just throw these mooks at people as quick as I can.
Yeah, the best part about Advanced Wars is like, fuck that shit. Move as many of the units as you want. Just know that they each have a limited number of movement points. Like, or Super Famicom Wars if you're someone like Jeff and you're perverted in the head and you need to see the doctor.
Or even Fire Emblem is not a game where it's like, I can only move 3 of your men this turn. Like,
I'm trying to think of a similar, like, you only have X number of moves turn-based tactics game. And I know there are some that exist. I just can't think of them off the top of my head because
sure, like
there are ways to use limited action sets. Oh, Valkyria Chronicles. Valkyria Chronicles is an example of you have a limited number of actions per turn.
Sure, or like even XCOM to an extent. Like I'm thinking older like DOS XCOM, but even like the Sid Meier Firaxis ones too. Like there's an economy of movement. Like you can only do so many things per turn. It's not like a infinite thing. But you could say that about Fire Emblem too, right? It's like you move and then you attack. Jagged Empire's coming to mind for some reason. I don't
Jagged
know.
Alliance.
Jagged Alliance. Sorry. This game is not as dull.
It's novel.
It's novel.
It's interesting as a concept. I don't think I would ever conceive of a world unless I was a young lad back in the day, and this was the one GBA game I get for an entire month or 2 months.
That was a very GBA flavored thing. Like they were, the games were $20, $30 a pop. The boxes were small. Like they felt like a very stocking stuffer energy. That's the thing about both of these games. Like, so these were the 2 pieces of Lord of the Rings media that were like the first to drop after those movies were done. Like to some extent, this was like the next thing that happened with that property. Like imagine like if instead of opening Star Wars Galaxy's Edge or the Avatar theme park as like the next thing you got was the Lord of the Rings The Third Age, like to tide you over, like to be like, wow, that's the next amazing story in the J.R.R. Tolkien canon is Eragust, and Hadhog. Okay, what did they do? They just followed them around.
I know people who have fond memories of this game, and I do not want to besmirch them. I don't know anyone who has fond memories of the GBA game, but I know people who have fond memories of the main game, and I invite them to write into this podcast.
It's,
Inquiries at deep.lol.
Yeah, like, the Third Age feels like a tragedy. It's a game that had just been built up for so long, for me, maybe in my head, but I feel like even the ska around it, in the cool, very online gamer folks that I've been rolling with for like most of my adult life, it's been like, oh yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of like it's some Final Fantasy X. Got that Aragorn in it. You go to Moria. Like, and I'm like, that sounds kind of neat. That sounds
great.
That could be worth a chuckle.
I remember playing this as a child. I think by default, this is one of the top 5 RPGs on the GameCube.
Yeah, you wind up in weird situations like that.
Man,
like, this game came out on the Xbox.
Up.
Like,
are you gonna? I mean, actually,
I'm gonna look up
Pokemon
GameCube
Coliseum,
RPGs.
Pokemon XD, Baton Kaitos, Skies
Tales
of
of Symphonia.
Okay, never mind. It is one of the top 10 JRPGs on the GameCube.
Re-released version of Skies of Arcadia. Your favorite Fire Emblem game, Path of Radiance.
Path of Radiance fucking slaps. It's the best one.
Phantasy Star
There's a
Online.
bad. You know what? It's probably better than that bad Paper Mario game.
Super Paper Mario is for the Wii.
No, I mean the one about the doors and the fucking
what
bullshit.
he's doing.
I see what you're doing, and I refuse to engage with it.
I'm just saying I'd probably put Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance over that bullshit Paper Mario game.
God damn. Send inquiries to... I'm going to find your personal email.
So,
PM
okay.
info@zombiepie.com.
And ask why Project M isn't on the Twitch database, except it is now.
Baden Kato's Origins is listed above the Third Age on my list, on this list that I'm looking at right now. Top 10.
I have no perception of if people like Baten Kaido's Origins more than the original.
I think the first one of those is the one that came with a copy of Tower of Jiraga as a bonus. Like a bespoke GameCube release of Famicom Tower of Jiraga, which is so cool.
Day 752 of me asking Jeff to watch the Tower of Jiraga anime.
Nope.
Shit anime.
To watch the anime with me.
Play shit video games. I won't watch shit anime. I got better things to do with my time.
GameCube had a short list of Japanese or Japanese style RPGs.
Yeah.
Like RPGs even, like fuck the qualifiers. RPGs. The Xbox list is like even shorter. So this almost by default.
Do you count?
I would rather
BioWare
play
is
Sudeki.
doing?
I do. That's what I'm saying. Even if you roll in BioWare stuff and then like you take a step out of BioWare and you're left with the like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance stuff, Shin Megami Tensei 9, which is never localized, okay, and Metal Dungeon, bad dungeon crawler thing that no one remembers. Like it's a weird, strange list.
The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, that console port was massively important for a generation just getting in. I've had this talk with Braden a couple of times. The Xbox port of The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind was like an inflection point for an entire generation of people who had not been exposed to CRPGs and suddenly got exposed to CRPGs. It is really important. We're also forgetting all of those Raven Software, X-Men, and Marvel games that are basically Diablos, but they were action role-playing games as well. I bet they don't hold up as well, although I will fight you about Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
I remember loving Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
And then Peter Molyneux was making Fable games.
Yeah, I would put this above Fable, but that's just me. There's like literally nothing appeal about that shit to me.
Don't like quaint Britishness and fart jokes.
Awful.
And
playing
the most straightforward action RPG combat.
I get like I feel like that's an indictment of the RPG state on the Xbox in and of itself, that people were like, Fable, baby, we got Fable. It's like, no,
I have nostalgic fondness for Fable 2. I doubt it would hold up.
I mean, it probably holds up better than Fable 1, which is the only one I've touched, and goddamn, no thank you.
I really like Fable 2. Even to this day, I really like Fable 2.
All this is to say, these are the two consoles with like limited RPG lists, though. This also went on the PlayStation 2.
I played this on the PlayStation 2. The frame rate gets bad when it gets foggy.
Oh, yeah. Like, this game also occasionally hits... I think the frame rate on this game is completely unlocked, and there were moments where it was definitely, if not like... I'm pretty sure this was hitting 60 on a stock Xbox. Like, it runs incredibly well at times, and then at other times it does not at all. It's just bad. It's very erratic, but running around actually looks okay. I think this runs in progressive scan. Like, I don't know. There are worse looking things than I've seen on an original Xbox. But yeah, like imagine being on the PlayStation 2 in like 2004 with this RPG, and you're
Shadow Hearts Covenant came out in 2004.
Like probably a Suikoden came out in that crease. Like probably a Tales game came out in that crease.
I think it was Suikoden 4, so maybe not. Okay, maybe not that one.
Maybe a weaker entry, but like the competition you have on that platform is blood curdling.
Okay, if you wanna know, this was the same year as that bullshit Paper Mario game. Which, if you're a GameCube owner, if you have a choice between this and that dog shit, I guess you would take the dog shit because it's better than nothing.
It's a game that is just like a tragedy. I'm done talking about it. Hey, I want to rank these and then put them to bed because they just make me sad.
Did we rank the fan translated games?
I put them in a DNF column. I guess if we want to actually, I guess there's things in the tier list we didn't actually finish.
I feel like I do want to rank. We ranked Fire Emblem 1 and we didn't.
We ranked Draken.
Yeah, we ranked Draken and we didn't finish
this
that.
Game better.
Let's do homework.
Bonus content. Run it down the list.
I stand by Game Informer's 6.75 review of 1,000 Year Door, motherfuckers.
I'm gonna fucking drive to California and beat you up.
Bahamut Lagoon. Is it better than Fire Emblem 1?
Is that our number 1?
No, I'm starting in the middle.
Okay. Shit.
I played it for an hour.
Yeah, I would rank it below Fire Emblem 1.
I would rank it below Fire Emblem 1.
There are people screaming about this, but okay.
Inquiries at deep.lol.
Yeah.
Convince us to play more Bahamut Lagoon.
Better than East 3.
Yes.
All right, that's where that goes. This is good. Like, we got it right off the dome. This is how these lists should all be made. Arabian Nights. How we feel about that versus Bahamut Lagoon.
That's below Bahamut Lagoon.
It's below.
East 3.
I would rank it below Ys 3.
Revengers of Vengeance.
It's above
it's playable. So
Revengers of Vengeance is actual dog shit.
Okay, feels fine.
A barely functional fighting game that is also an RPG that means it is a bad fighting game.
Yeah, like multiple people on this podcast weren't able to see the over-the-top, top-down shooter parts just because the base game, the fighting part is so bad that we couldn't progress. So yeah, right. let's go with that. It's better than an unplayable piece of shit.
Soma Bringer. How do we feel about that versus Arabian Nights?
It's better than Arabian Nights.
It's better.
East 3.
It's better.
It's
Bahamut
better.
Lagoon.
It's a push. This is. Do I like one glass of water versus another glass of water?
Bahamut Lagoon is a game. Once again, I could see myself playing in a different timeline.
Yeah, I think I respect Bahamut Lagoon more because
Soulbringer is a game that would have made sense if I had played it in 2008.
It would have made sense if we had played it with ad hoc multiplayer, but we didn't have that luxury.
Yeah,
I was busy playing Metroid Prime Hunters.
I'm a simple boy,
online.
And it appeals to me more than Bahamut Lagoon just because you can like get in there and do the thing like without doing trigonometry and also like hoping dragons listen to you. But I can accept if y'all democracying it, so we'll put that below Bahamut Lagoon.
Okay.
That's okay. So as the list now stands, let's get rid of this DNF header. Top to bottom. And I've definitely not regretted this decision, by the way. I've definitely not thought about this at all, ZP. I'm sorry. Xenosaga Episode 1, then Grandia 2, Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar, Fire Emblem, Shadow, etc., Bahamut Lagoon, Soma Bringer, East 3, the original, Wanderers from East, Arabian Nights, Revengers of Vengeance, Battlemania, for the Sega CD, and then Draken. In all versions, is a cursed thing. Now, 2 different items get added to this. 2 discrete entries. These are very different games we're talking about. Lord of the Rings: The Third Age console. So I'm a start at the middle kind of guy. Above or below Bahamut Lagoon? Really?
Above.
What?
Okay, you shoot your shot, Jeff. Where do you think?
It's so dull. It's so dull.
Yeah, but there's entire parts of Bahamut Lagoon that are unplayable.
You
like
could
the whole
persuade
dragon
me.
shit is such a sour point. Like
The
But
dragon
it's
shit just seems like something you
weird.
look up in a guide.
Like it's
Like that is
like,
yeah,
that
but
is
then
a
your
solvable
dragon jumps
problem.
into battle and it immediately dies.
I all but guarantee that whatever the story in Bahamut Lagoon actually does, and wherever it goes, it is more interesting than this.
Okay, fine.
Okay, you've
So
persuaded
it's worse
me.
than
Hold on.
Bahamut Lagoon.
Worse than Bahamut Lagoon.
Yes. Soma Bringer.
I think Soma Bringers is better than this
I think-
game.
I would probably rather play Soma Bringer
Yeah.
East
with
3.
my 2 friends on the Shin
Ooh,
Kansen.
Ys 3.
East 3 is fucking jank.
Yeah, Ys 3 is a little too. I mean, at no point did I feel like I was. Here's the thing. I don't think I ever want to finish Ys 3, even if I was capable of doing it. if you gave me an unlimited amount of time, I would probably finish Third Age.
If you gave me a charity stream and paid me money or paid, 6 children money, I would play.
Diametrically opposed to this idea. I would play Ys 3 for the rest of my life.
The hitbox of that sword, Jeff. The hitbox of that sword.
The music in Ys 3 alone makes it a better game.
The limited times in which you can use healing magic in an action game. So you have to start at the fucking beginning if you die.
You have to just kind of grind enemies until your number is high enough.
Yeah.
Braden, that face is so good. The face.
I mean, okay,
Adult Kristen's face.
The adult Kristen face I use for my avatar.
Tell me what anyone's face in the Third Age looks
like. They're PS2 era approximations of human face, and so they look kind of grungy. Okay.
All right, I might be going towards Jeff.
Ha!
This is a worse game than Ys 3.
Okay.
It is! Also, Ys 3 is like 6 hours long.
Yeah.
Arabian Nights.
Oh, this is better than Arabian Nights.
This is better than Arabian Nights.
That's where I'm putting it. That's where it's going.
Okay.
I win.
All right.
I did it. I put it. Ys 3 gonna be in the middle of this list eventually. It's my one goal in life.
All right, put the GBA one above Revengers of Vengeance.
Oh, no, wow. I think that the GBA game is... This has not come up because we have not graded a lot of handheld games. We grade handheld games on a curve?
I say no.
I say no.
I think it's a
good handheld game is still good.
Yeah. Tetris on the Game Boy.
Mario Luigi Superstar Saga is not diminished by being on the Game Boy Advance.
That's a good game we could pick.
There's a whole lot of people playing Metroid Fusion right now.
Okay, start in the middle then. Shoot your shot. Keep
Soma
going.
Bringer.
Blah, 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 blah. This is worse than Summer Bringers.
Ys 3.
Worse. Better. Worse.
Yeah, I guess it's worse. I mean, the whole movement stuff.
Lord of the Rings, the Third Age console.
Now, this is where I think we need to have a discussion.
Yeah.
Because I think there's aspects of the GBA game that are, like, more compelling than...
It is novel, but it is not a good tactics game. That is my ultimate thing.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with the limited movement system is a bummer. If it had
I
just been
feel like there's not enough there. There's not enough, as M would say, game juice.
Yeah.
Like I want.
You know what? Let me get my knife. Let's chop the head off this bug and see how much juice comes out of this game.
Yeah.
Like I'm a very it's short. Therefore it is good. Hence Ys 3 above Third Age, and it's like almost that simple for me. But this game, while certainly being shorter, also doesn't respect your time at all with this move two dudes shit. So yeah, plus the scum factor. So it's
okay.
low.
Okay.
Yep, I've been convinced. Arabian Nights.
Arabian Nights at least has okay looking sprite work.
It's a good looking game. I think
pretty
I was
good
the most
music.
Horrible battle screen
of the people who played it. I mean, we're dealing with again 2 glasses of water. Which one has more ice?
I think I just liked this game the most.
Wow,
the portable one.
I'm genuinely surprised to hear that.
Just viscerally. Here's the thing: I have no patience in my life for bad tactics anymore. I played.
So my next pick is Fallout Brotherhood of Steel.
I'll play some fucking Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel because that's what you mean when you say that, right?
No, let's pick the last parting shot of Interplay.
The dying gasp of a withering corpse, brought to you by Balls Guarana.
Balls Guarana.
Yes.
Huh.
Instead of fucking Nuka-Cola, the vending machines in Fallout Brotherhood of Steel are selling you Balls Guarana, which is a soda that is just very sweet and came in those very Guarana.
Remember when they tried to make a Fallout game using the Snowblind engine from Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance? Champions of Norat?
And the Bard's Tale 2004.
Yeah.
All of my balls came from the Fries that got closed in the area. It's the only place I would ever buy balls. The root beer I used to be a fan of. I think Lord of the Rings: The Third Age fits very well the GBA version between Arabian Nights and Revengers of Vengeance. How do you guys feel about that?
I think it ranks below Arabian Nights, but above Revengers of Vengeance.
Yes.
All right. Democracy.
What is the line in hardcore gaming, like the game that basically determines like this is where peak shit, the Mendoza line of
Revengers of
hardcore
Vengeance
gaming?
is our Kuso line.
Yeah, they call it the Jones zone, where Jones in the fast lane is on that list. Like everything at and below that is where the actual poop goes.
Well, something that we do on the Final Fantasy series is where's the green line? Games that we would actually recommend you play.
I feel like my green line for our list would probably be somewhere around.
I think it's just Grandia and Xenosaga.
I would say there is a historical novelty to be had in original Fire Emblem, but
okay,
you're better off playing other Fire or
okay. Yeah. So right now we have 3 games that we genuinely recommend.
Yeah,
Fire Emblem 1.
I think Ultima 4 is fascinating.
Oh yeah, you know what? Let's have Ultima 4 be the green line bearer right now.
Okay. And if that's the logic, then let's say if this was a tier list, got your S tier. This is weird to think about it this way. S tier: Xenosaga Episode 1, Reveals Are Mocked, Grandia 2, and Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar, and then everything else. Let's say there's a middle tier. Middle tier: Fire Emblem, the Fire Emblem 1. I'm not going to say the full name. Bahamut Lagoon, Soma Bringer, East 3. Then we're kind of like, where's the scungy bottom? Because then after East 3, we got Lord of the Rings console, Arabian Nights, Third Age GBA.
That's D tier. That's D tier.
Okay.
And then F tier is Revengers of Vengeance and Draken. Although I still think about Draken in the sense that everything in that game is intentional. It is not the product of like poor development. It is the product of intentional design, and I just want to continue to respect Draken's intentional malice.
That I was the only one who actually picked a Kusoge game for a Kusoge episode with Revengers of Vengeance.
I'm kind of inclined to agree. Well, I mean, Draken doesn't really fit a Kusoge thing. This is what I'm saying, like, the worst thing in the world to be is boring. Like, in this thing. Like, we're entertaining ourselves. Yes. Like, boring is a disaster. I've been doing this thing. I've been collating Famitsu data, like, low-key in the background for, like, a year and a half now. I will tell you, the median score Famitsu gave out over, like, the sample range I have, which covers about 35 years, is a 24. With a deviation of like a 0.8, right? So like that's the medium. That's like medium. The stuff that's at like the extreme poles of that are like very good, or like, you know, your Death Crimsons, like your actual like ass disasters, like games that you care so much more about. Like there's stuff in that medium middle space that like no one will ever fucking talk about again because it was like fine. But yeah, I look at this list and it's like, you know what? I remember Xenosaga Episode 1. I think Ultima 4 is fascinating. And then, like, down the ass end, I'm just like, fucking cat head, shark killing you, Sega CD music happening to bad Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And then, like, the middle of this is just, yeah, Bob Lagoon seems like a very Baroque of the period Super Famicom. Like,
We should play Baroque.
yeah. $300 just laying around. So yeah, this was supposed to be a big boy and it didn't work out. We have decided, I'm letting everyone know, I guess including Chris, to give Braden a mulligan. Because you deserve.
This was my idea. What are you talking about?
Like, I'm taking your idea and making it my own.
Okay.
Yeah, this was Chris's idea.
My reality with your own.
Yes, like so many Adam Savages. So.
All right. So once again, do you want I have 2 picks that will probably, if nothing else, make for more interesting radio than us going, it's so boring. And I have a longer game and a shorter game.
It's so boring is a failed pilot episode that we thought of.
Yeah.
Parody porn Third Age. Oh
gosh.
Still chuckling. One is longer and one is shorter, you said.
One is the How Long to Beat is around 40 hours. The other one, the How Long to Beat, is around 20.
20. We're playing Final Fantasy VI, Jeff. You got to think about that.
Yeah. Got the rest of my life, too. 20.
Okay.
I know what both of these options actually are, too, and it kind of hurts, but 20.
Wait, I don't know what the 40-hour option is.
I was offering Ogre Battle 64.
Oh, that's right. Ogre Battle. You've been talking about that. Okay.
I wanted to play Ogre Battle.
Well, that's not the 20-hour game.
I knew there would be resistance because of its length. So instead, what if we played the original Suikoden for the PlayStation 1, released in 1995 by Konami?
Aren't they the people that hate games?
They're the people who make. They're the people responsible for eFootball.
Ah, yes, eFootball.
And
they make a lot of good Pachi slot games.
Erotic violence.
Pull the lever. I too watch YouTube. Suikoden. It's a game I've played to completion already. That is great. I will have fun replaying
108 barrels of fun.
108.
Look at a guide, because you ain't finding all of them yourself.
No.
Guy hidden behind wall.
Cryptic. Yeah.
Guy you have to level up a mediocre character to fight. Suikoden.
Suikoden's cool.
This one will probably only take us like 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's a genuinely really short, I think, it's an underrepresented game, but I think it lives in the shadow of its sequel. But
and then we play Suikoden 2.
Yeah, immediately afterwards. I have Suikoden 5 sitting on a shelf beside me.
I have a copy of Suikoden 5 as well.
There's a Windows version of this game that came out.
There is, but it's Chinese, and I've looked this up before this. It's Chinese and Japanese only.
Yeah.
And it's Windows 95, and Braden and I will tell you, Windows 95 emulation fucking sucks shit. It sucks so much shit.
What, you don't want to set up a DOSBox? Yeah. It's not one of those.
It's when you can't set up DOSBox.
Yeah, it's that horrible lost generation.
That lost generation of DirectX games.
The amount of work I had to do to get King's Quest 8 running, which the GOG version of King's Quest 8 does not work on modern Windows OSs.
I will tell you both.
So you have to run Windows compatibility mode and switch it back until it starts
I had
to work.
to legally download an ISO of the original game disc and then use a fan installer to install that version of the game.
I am this close, gentlemen and those at home, to taking one of these Office Dells I have that I bought on a eBay flurry for like $70 a piece and installing XP on one of them so I can play Sid Meier's Sim Golf, because I got a real Jonesin to play Sid Meier's Sim Golf.
That's technically an RPG.
It's one of the greatest games of all time, and it literally will not run on anything past XP because they patched out the ability to read safe disk DR. It's a whole fucking nightmare.
Amazing.
It's a great game, though.
It's an incredible game. Suikoden. Get it off PSN while you still can. It's a good one.
Or out there. You can get it out there.
Yeah, you could spend $6 or $10.
This does not endorse piracy. However, we are not your dad.
Yeah, no dads here.
If I stream this game, you will notice that maybe this thing called RetroArch pops up from time to time. It's okay.
If you're my future children, I apologize in advance.
It's from Chile. Yeah, I don't think I'm a dad.
Well, I guess we're going to learn more about the Scarlet Moon Empire.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people, cats, dogs, however you choose to present yourself, thank you for skunking around with us. As we've mentioned throughout the show, we have an email address. It is inquiries@deep.lol. You can send your questions there, your comments, your prayer concerns. Tell me why you don't like Lord of the Rings. Tell me why we should stop doing 2-hour versions of the show, or tell me that you like that.
We promised that this episode would be 50 minutes, Jeff.
And then
here we are.
This episode would be short. You're the one who were like, we have to rank these games. We decided not to rank
because of recording this.
This is all your fault, Chris.
Send me your hate mail about Mario, Paper Mario. Tell me why you're a bitch ass.
He is on Twitter and
convince my co-hosts why we should play Wizards and Warriors, the 2000 CRPG by D.W. Bradley.
Whatever you want. You send it to inquiries@deep.lol. If you'd like to support the show, in all seriousness, though.
Day
we have a good time.
385 of me asking to play Borderlands 2. Tiny Tina is a national treasure.
I will tell you right now, we're going to derail this whole thing. No matter what you all say or what you do, no matter what you offer me, I will never play Borderlands 2 for this show. Like, ever. I'm not doing it. That's like maybe my one rule. It makes me actually sad to think about. Back on track. If you'd like to help support this show, don't tell me about Borderlands 2 because it sucks shit and is bad. And also go to patreon.com/deeplistens. It's patreon.com.
Oh, right. We have to remind everybody.
Yeah.
You can suggest games. If you donate as much as $1, we will actually listen to a request.
$1.
$1.
We will consider your request.
Yeah. Once we get through Suikoden, which is what is on the docket now.
You want us to play Realms of Arcania Blade of Destiny to figure out if it deserves to be the worst
my dude.
CRPG in Metacritic history?
Fuck yeah, mein hair.
Anything. Make me play Shin Megami Tensei 9, please. We will be addressing some of these requests in the near future.
Mega Man X RPG, if you ask nice enough.
Sonic the Chronicles has already been covered by Deep Listens,
yes.
and it is ineligible for being played, unfortunately. Also, Thor High Heels video just came out about the music in that game, which I guess I didn't realize there was music in that game. If there's music in it, it's... Whoa.
It's fucking awful.
Why? Wow. Oh my god. Amazing. Thank you. It's back on focus here. Tune in, Off the Deep End. We do this every once in a while. We'll probably be back sooner than we were last time, which is this time to you listening. Time works. This is so off the rails. Inquires deep.lol. Thanks to SuperSex420. He's out there doing fat beats. Featured in such fine YouTube selections as Pro Wave, such as the song Halfway, for instance. Halfway is available on bandcamp.com along with other hot tracks from SuperSex420. So check them out. We'll see y'all next time. And remember, there's no such thing as cheating in a single-player game. Bye.
Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous is the best RPG I've played this year. Bye.
See, nothing.
6.75 is exactly what Thousand Year Door deserves.
Get
Bye. This episode of Off the Deep End was recorded and edited on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Dishqualiapsh or Nisqually people, who have lived on and stewarded these lands and waters since times immemorial.